Hello everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day. I wanted to update on the whole Kavanaugh mess. Now, I don't know if you remember, but I do, because like I've said in videos before, no matter how young I was always glued to politics. It was interesting because I would bring my ideas to school, and since I didn't realize then I lived in a very liberal town, that you couldn't say certain things, and I didn't realize this, but I would speak my mind. You know, I spoke it anyway. Well, this whole thing, and I've said this in videos before, I said this in the Kavanaugh video before, this whole thing is about abortion. The fear of abortion no longer being legal and accessible. And as the president knows, if the Supreme Court does reverse that decision, every state is a democracy. We live in a republic, but every state is a democracy and can make the rules on its own. The state that I live in, they've just recently noted, they didn't realize this, that it was illegal for abortions to be performed. And abortions have been performed in this state, despite what the law was, because it's a very blue state, extremely blue. So they changed the law rather quickly, and I understand why. So it will be kicked back to the states. And you know, California certainly is going to keep it legal. There are a number of states that are very, very blue, which it will be kept legal. And there are some states that are kind of in the purple zone, most likely will remain legal. So there's going to be enough states, it's going to remain legal. And I would even say some of these states that go red in some elections, some states go red in some elections, and some, then it goes back to blue. It goes back and forth. You don't have any hard right or hard left in some states. And in those states, I would say they would probably, because they vacillate, they go back and forth, it probably remain legal in those states too. So if you're concerned, should this happen to you, and then you realize at some point you didn't realize you were pregnant, which there are lots of signs that you're pregnant. And I say the schools need to do a better job teaching children, teaching teenagers about the signs of pregnancy, how not to get pregnant, about your cycle, and make sure every single girl keeps her cycle on a calendar and knows what's going on at all times, knows when she's fertile. All these things, and every single different kind of birth control there is. In fact, maybe we should have the schools take all the girls, even the boys, and bring them to Planned Parenthood clinics. Planned Parenthood clinics, there's some clinics, there's abortion clinics, and there's ones that are Planned Parenthood who actually are clinics for poor women, and they distribute all different kinds of contraception and educate you on contraception. Well, apparently maybe there should be more of those, and the schools should have bus trips to these places so that girls know when not to get pregnant. It's easy to get pregnant when you're younger because you're not used to these hormones. And the boys aren't used to the hormones either. You know, the hormones suddenly come upon you and they're just kind of overwhelming you. It happens when you're an adult too, especially when you're an adult and you drink a little, or when you're young and you can't handle alcohol and you got all these hormones going on. Lots of things can happen. And as we know, we live in a very free society, and we demand sex whenever we want it. And we want abortion on demand. And a girl should be able to walk down the street topless if she wants to, and not have a man touch her. We want all these things, yet at the same time, yet at the same time, you know the road I'm going down here. The Democrats are doing everything they possibly can. Wait for the car to go by. Everything they possibly can to stop the nomination of Judge Kavanaugh. This man is an altar boy of altar boys. I'm telling you, I look at this man, and through, he is somebody, I'm not even sure he has sexual urges. There's just, sometimes you look at someone and you see, you can kind of tell, and other people, it's like, you know, this person falls in love, and then they want to get close to the person that they fall in love with. They're that kind of person. And then there's people who will do it whenever and whatever. And usually, you know, that's what the Democrats want. They want a world where that's possible. That's why they want a world of abortion, where abortion is at the drop of a hat. Yet at the same time, they're saying that Kavanaugh, at 17 years old, was drunk at a party with another girl that was drunk, and there were young teenagers, and she was groped. I mean, if I told you how many times that isn't like a good thing, but as teenagers, I can look back at my teenage years and understand where the guys were at. You know, they're reading every signal. Your signal is, oh, I like you. You're so cute. I like you. And some girls want straight sex. A lot of the girls in high school, that's what they're doing. They started when they're 13 years old, for God's sakes. So it's hard for guys to know. Really. They're trying to figure it out. Of course, they want it to fall on the side of she wants sex. And of course, Ginsburg there, right on the Supreme Court, she wants it to be legal for, you know, the age of consent to be, was it 13 or 12 or some ridiculous amount? So if that's the case, and you want to keep your abortion legal and sex is free, is basically bring it down to the age of pedophilia, and you say that a 17-year-old guy, which I don't believe at all whatsoever, because this came out too late. Feinstein apparently knew about it when she was questioning Kavanaugh. So this came out a little too late. It's because they know he is going to be confirmed. So the big thing now is the whole pussy hat movement, pussy costume movement. You did something to me sexually 50 years ago, and you're going to get punished for it now. I mean, a guy was acting like a guy 50 years ago, or they're being a little drunk and misreading yours, and you are drunk and you don't know the signals you're giving off. This is a bit ridiculous. There's a little story, tell you quickly, about somebody that I dated and who couldn't get over the fact that there was a girl who, whatever, in the band, that keeps claiming and telling everyone that he tried to rape her, which he didn't rape her, he tried. But as it turns out, both of them were drunk on Jack Daniels, really smacking drunk. She asked to go into his room. What is a drunk guy expected to do when a girl is actually coming on to them all night long? And then afterwards, she decides, hey, this guy's a jerk, and then go around, telling people she's raped for sympathy. But as it turned out, when you see the big picture and you talk to a lot of people and you kind of get the full story of what happened that night, they say there's a joke. There's this joke. There's not virgins and there's virgins, and there are virgins, or what do you call it? Renewed virgins of some kinds. Those are recycled virgins, and those are the girls that had sex that realized that afterwards they didn't like it. So then they say, oh, it was, he took it from me, it was actually rape. Well, it just, 35 years ago, when she doesn't remember the time or the day or the year or anything else, but it affected her so much and she became a psychologist. Usually, I've been to psychologists, I'll admit that. I've had a lot of really bad things happen and, things of, crimes that were brought to court. About that, I've had a lot of bad things happen. So I've had reason to go to psychologists. But psychologists, the way it used to be, they usually talk you through it and they usually make things rational. You're both 17, you're at a party. His hormones are saying this. Your hormones are saying that. You might really like him. He might actually misjudge your signals because a man will always push the envelope. No matter what age you are, they will always try to get sex. Always. And a woman needs to remember that. And it's not because he's in love with you or likes you. It's because his hormones and his body and nature, this is the way nature works, is driving him to procreate. And you have your feelings and you feel like you're in love when it's actually probably sex. It's probably more sexual than it is love. If you really don't know the guy, it's probably more on the sexual side. Your hormones are driving you closer to him. And you really have to just stop and say, am I in love? Or, I could possibly get pregnant. Do I want to have sex with this guy? But if you both, see, that's why drinking and drugs is not good, because you misread signals. You don't remember what happened. You don't remember the signals that you're giving off. Remember that part of it is your responsibility. If somebody outright rapes you, that's one thing. That's outright rape. Okay. But sometimes we can be giving off signals that a guy who's kind of drunk or a guy who's really with raging hormones, you're the woman, you're the one that's going to get pregnant, you're the one who's going to get a sexually transmitted disease. You have an incubation chamber inside of you. So even a little bit of bacteria can incubate, that's what it is, it's incubation, grows into a sexually or some type of disease that the man won't get. Asymptomatic, not asexual, but asymptomatic. But women, because we have these incubation machines, we will know if we have something. So as a woman, you must take responsibility. You must watch your P's and Q's, because this is who you are. And you can't say, well, I let this happen, and it's your fault that I let this happen. I took no precautions. But it's still your fault. There are clinics in every town. Get your birth control. In fact, these clinics have these fish tank jars filled with condoms. You can get female condoms and milk for free. You can go in every single day and you can load up. You bring a piece of luggage and load up and get it. And if you can't afford Plan B, say you had unprotected sex, they'll give it to you. They'll give it to you. And you take that within 5 days. You know it's been unprotected. You take precautions. You go up there. Get 2 of them. Keep them on hand. You're the woman and you have to be a little smarter than the man. Men aren't always going to care what happens to you. They just want the sex when they want it, right? They want the sex when they want it. And you might want the sex when you want it and expect not to get any sexual diseases or anything happen. But at 17 years old, should this be 17 years old? Now, this woman who is a psychologist, and she said that she told her psychiatrist, and her psychiatrist doesn't even remember the details. He just knows the name of the man. Just knows the name of the man. Well, as a psychiatrist, you should know some details. Unless you're getting Alzheimer's, you should remember some details. This came at the last minute. Because it came at the last minute, you know it's fake. You know we're hearkening back to Judge Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill and the story about she brought him a Coke and he said that there's a pubic hair on my Coke. And then he, a black, which nobody looks at this man. You know, there's Thurgood Marshall, was the first black Supreme Court justice. Clarence Thomas, he is a black man. He's the descendant of slaves on both sides. He's a descendant of slaves on both sides. He is 100% back. The reason why he's Republican is because Jim Crow, the KKK, all slave owners, all slave traders were all Democrats. And if you grew up in the South, you know, and you suffered through Jim Crow law, you know it was the Democrats that implanted. Wallace, Orville Favis, all these governors stood in the way and barred the doorways from black children going into white schools to end segregation. These were all Democrats, not Republicans. So you would think that's the reason why Clarence Thomas is a Republican and can't be a Democrat. He's not going to betray his people. He truly is one with his people, one with his heritage, remembering slavery and remembering who did slavery and knowing who is lying now. And when he said this is a high-tech lynching, it's the truth. That's who did the lynching, was the Democrats. And now, in the future, though they're not quite going to kill him, they were doing a high-tech type of lynching. The Democrats were trying to lynch him and destroy him. And Anita Hill, she suffered. And her name was dragged, nothing was dragged through their mind. I saw all over my state bumper stickers, Anita Hill for president. They made a movie out of it. She became a hero. I'm surprised she didn't run for public office. But it wasn't true. The man has been nothing but on the up and up. He's extremely intelligent. There's nothing that they have really found on him. But apparently she was attracted to him and he was married. And so he said no. And so there are some women who get jealous and go after married men. And when it's time to destroy, the Democrats found her and they needed to destroy him to keep him off the bench. Got to keep the Republican off the bench because you don't want to remove Roe v. This was in 1991. I remember I was making, I think I was making a pie. I was cutting up apples or something and making the pie dough on a big long table, and the hearings were going on. So I was listening to this whole thing as I was making a pie. And yeah, I've been cooking since I was very young. I'm half Italian. You're born and they put you on a stool and you got the tomatoes in the hot water and you gotta take all the skins off of the tomatoes, and it burned like acid on my fingers. But you're expected to cook from the day you're born. So it's like 1991, you must have been really young. Yeah, I was really young, but my hands were always cold. I made great pies. So I remember, I believe it was the pie. I believe I was making a pie, but I remember it was on the table. The table was all pulled out so I could do all my work and make all this food. And just listening day after day after day to these hearings. Orrin Hatch, I remember seeing Orrin Hatch for the first time, asking him questions. And there was I was introduced to a lot of politicians, listening to that day after day, watching and listening. And this man had nothing but dignity. And my mother traveled to the South all the time and went to black churches. She wasn't allowed, because she was Italian, she was not allowed to go into a white cab. She wasn't allowed to drink out of white water fountain. She wouldn't be allowed to marry a white person. She was under Jim Crow law, being a Southern Italian, and she went to black Baptist churches all the time. And if there was something flawed, so she knew what the Democratic Party did to black people, being down there, living with black people, knowing their suffering. She would have never have been pro Clarence Thomas. We would never have been listening to those say, oh, Republican, he's betraying his. No, he wasn't betraying his people, because she knew and she lived it. She lived what was like visiting the South. And she loved gospel music, and that was her passion to go there. But her family, of course, was all dark-skinned, clearly Italian, clearly not considered white. So they were rejected by the people in the South because they were not considered white. So she knows. I mean, I grew up in a household that knows. And she taught me a lot. And she didn't know where I came from. She's dead now, and I bet she died of a rare form of leukemia, and I had to take care of her. And for many, many years, I had to take care of her. And she still didn't know where I came from, being so white. There must have been a drop of some kind of something. But the Democrats, this is not new for the Democrats to do, and it's not new for the Democrats to lie, especially when you've got Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, after the whole Monica Lewinsky thing, and she was too young. He was a married man. He was the leader of the free world. She was naive. She's 21. You don't know anything when you're 21. I don't know anything. I'm no longer 21, and I still don't know anything. I have years to grow up and to be wise and to not be taken advantage of by men. Very easy. 20. What did I know when I was 20 or 21? I knew how to bake and I knew how to cook. But you're very naive as far as men go. You're extremely naive. All sorts of things can happen. She was taken advantage of. And since after his impeachment, during his impeachment, he bombed the pharmaceutical plant in Iraq, is what he did, to take the attention away from his scandal. And then there were 2,000 people, 2 million people that were killed in Iraq, and 1.5 million were children. And I remember Leslie Stahl asking, what's her face? The first female Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright. And she looked at her and said, well, 1.5 million children were killed. Was this really worth it? And Madeleine Albright, Bill Clinton's Secretary of State, said, it was a hard choice, but I believe it was worth it. And you Democrats hail her because she's a woman. And of course, Hillary entitled one of her books, Hard Choices. That's where she got it from. Hard choices. It almost pulls the heart right out of you. No, you would say, no, I wish this didn't have to be done. Of course it didn't have to be done. Why are we bombing all these countries? Why are the Democrats bombing all these countries? Bush did one. Why are the Democrats destroying the rest of these countries. And in Libya, we've got auction blocks. Blacks are being sold at auction, but there's 6 million black slaves owned by other blacks in Africa. You would think Obama, the Democrat president, the first black president, would be sensitive to that. But no, somehow he's black and he's half African, not descendant of slaves, and half Irish. White, raised by white people. Yet it was Clarence Thomas that you destroyed, the son of slaves on both sides. The slaves were the losers of the war. The winners stayed there, and the winners sold the losers to the white people in the world. That's how the slave trade started. And they traded them, it's called slave trade because they traded them for guns. Basically, guns or anything the kings wanted that they couldn't produce in Africa. So this man, who's the descendant of people who really suffered, who lost the war, were brought over here in chains, most of them died on the way over, and his family has survived. For him to become a lawyer and then on the precipice of becoming a Supreme Court justice, the Democrats who were the slave owners and Jim Crow South who lynched all these black people, they're the ones fighting for this, to get one more black person on the Supreme Court, descendant of slaves. You would think that Democrats would be proud of that. But no, since he's not a Democrat, he's not really black. Now, how do the black people figure that one out? He's a betrayer. No, he's not a betrayer. If you're a Democrat and you're black, you're the betrayer. Republicans were formed to abolish slavery. That's why he's a Republican, and he's not betraying his people. And now you are destroying Kavanaugh, a story that doesn't hold water, that is coming in at the last minute. Bill Clinton, during his whole Monica Lewinsky thing, the women wanted partial birth abortion, which means you can abort that child even if it's ready to be born. It's kicking, it's ready to come out. You can abort that, which means kill the child in the womb. You can abort that child. And he signed into law that that was okay. And the women, even though he had been accused of rape, he had been officially, never denied it. He had raped Juanita Broadwick. And he had done all, exposing himself to Paula Jones. We're talking hundreds of women. And they say the reason why he went to Oxford on a Rhodes Scholarship. Chris Christopherson also got a Rhodes Scholarship and went to Oxford in England for free. He was kicked out of Oxford because he was accused of raping a girl there. Okay, this is your president, and after the impeachment hearings, and it was all done, and he had partial birth abortion was signed into law, the women had a party for him on the Capitol steps. And he celebrated by trying to rape Kathleen Willey in the Oval Office. So the women are having a party and hailing this man. And these are the women of the Me Too movement where somebody might have groped you. What? Grope. You know, groping is a lot. There's a lot of I've been groped by people I've worked for. It was a little thing. You know, and it was just it was you know what? I can't bring everybody to court. I really can't. I don't have the time. But you are the people who groping is bad. But you are holding a party for a rapist, a user, a serial rapist, a user on the Capitol steps because he signed into law that you can the baby's fully formed and you can kill that baby before it comes out. And then Planned Parenthood is taking advantage of you by making millions off of the dead carcass of that baby. At that point, because it's partial birth, it's no longer a fetus, it's a baby, okay? Planned Parenthood is making millions off of you and your suffering. Whatever suffering you say you have to abort the baby, okay? We'll put it into that context. You were suffering, you didn't know what to do, you were very confused, you were full of hormones, and this is true. Women can get very confused. So let's not take this away from women at the moment. But they are making millions off of the dead carcass of the baby. Do you think that's right? Do you think that's why Planned Parenthood has millions to pay lobbyists to lobby Congress to keep this going so they make their money? And Hollywood, it's a requirement in Hollywood that you give millions to Planned Parenthood. You have to, or else you can't be in Hollywood. You have to be on this side of the aisle. You be on this side, you're not in Hollywood. That sounds very Nazi. That sounds very communist. That sounds very totalitarian, doesn't it? Almost North Korea-ish. You have to think and do as we say. Otherwise, you don't get to be a star or whatever. But you women who will throw somebody, destroy someone's career over a grope, even if it's true, 17, both people drunk at a party, nobody remembers where it was, when it was, or what year it was. You're ready to throw this man's career. There is such a thing. There's a saint called St. Augustine, and he wrote, his writings are actually studied to this day. He was brilliant. But St. Augustine committed every single crime you could possibly imagine and was living with a woman, and she bore his children. And then he had a revelation. He became a new man. He literally became a saint. He completely changed. Even if it were true, why don't you even believe in the ability, someone's ability to change, to go to see the light? There are many Democrats, like, let's pull one out of the air, Ted Kennedy, who went off the bridge, got out of the car, and never told anyone. Well, he told his friends. They said to go tell someone to get her out of the car so she'd live. She was surviving in an air pocket. So she survived for hours. She could have lived. He told no one. He just went to bed. Why he had her die? Probably because he was married, and who knows? He didn't want the word to get out, right? You forgave that man who literally committed murder, literally, him and Chris Dodd would get together in the floor of the Congress, and they would ask questions of all the other politicians, which interns give the best head. We've recently found out there are lawsuits that are secretly paid out by us, the taxpayers, our money, because the politicians are raping and sexually taking advantage of many women on Capitol Hill. You don't know who they are. To get that money, you sign on the dotted line, and you say you won't tell anyone, and you get your money, right? You are not allowed to tell anyone who did it to you. And these are the people who are making judgments over Kavanaugh, who looks like this is a lie because it came out at the last minute. And if Dianne Feinstein had this information, she could have come out with it a long time ago. We could have had hearings. This whole thing would have been, they didn't want it to play out. They want it to be at the last minute. Do it at the last minute so it doesn't have to play out for very long, so we can destroy him. But you are voting into office people who've probably done, if anybody's voted for Ted Kennedy, he's committed murder. Okay, murder. Never even mentioned it in his book. And I have his book right down here. right there. Edward M. Kennedy, True Compass, right there. In his book, he never even mentions her. And she worked for his two brothers and their campaigns. She was a loyal person. He could have saved her life. If he saved her life, maybe she would have said nothing about of course there was an affair going on. She probably would have said nothing. Oh, it was an accident. You went over the bridge. Thank you for calling. You saved my life. I'm forever indebted to you. Of course, I'll never say anything to anybody. Oh, that was easy. That was easy. But you're voting people into office and re-voting them into office. People who have committed worse crimes than the 17-year-old boy who was drunk and she was drunk, and both of them had raging hormones. Really, teenagers, really, we're going back to the teenage years. It never happened because it's at the last minute that you're doing this. And the Me Too movement, since this is the in thing, you must get rid of it. If there was something else like children, like Joe Biden and all the tapes we have of Joe Biden caressing the hair of little girls, whispering into their ear, and then their fathers are there trying to pull them away from him. Now that's a crime. And you want to vote, you want to put him up for president? You voted him as vice president? Are you kidding? And we've got footage after footage after footage of him caressing and stroking the hair of little girls and whispering into their ear how beautiful they are. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You throw Biden right off the ship. And it's never, and that's aside from him plagiarizing, was this Scottish man, politician whose family worked in the mines, and it's a story about he was the first one to blah, blah. He plagiarized at least two people's stories, two politicians' stories, of very, very sad, hard lives. He plagiarized them. He's a liar. He's a professional liar, just like Bill Maher said. We wanted the best liar and we got him. And he was referring to Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, the rapist. But no, he's your hero because he signed partial birth abortion into law. As long as you sign partial birth abortion into law, you keep abortion legal, we will not destroy you. Even though whatever this crime, really, if groping at 17 years old when you're drunk at a party and it damaged you for the rest of your life, yet you were able to complete college and become a psychologist, which usually psychologists speak to you and reason you back into reality. Look, you were both, now it's time to move on. They reason with you and help you move on and say, you were both 17 at the time and you were drunk and you don't remember details. Let's work through the pain and let's move on. Why hasn't she moved? Why was that so devastating? I could tell you things. I could tell you stories that would make your head spin. Move on. It's very hard to move on from. She's traumatized by that. Oh my God. You know what? I should be president because let me tell you the things that I have been through and I have survived. My God, I could be Patton. Seriously, I could go into war and I could survive. I swear to God, if I told you the truth of the things that have happened to me. And this. So wake up, people. Wake up. I'm sick of this. The Democrats are insane. It's all about abortion. Abortion will still be legal. I guarantee it. And if it's not legal in some states, then you get your millions together and you bust them on a daily basis, 3 times a day, to states where it's legal, and you can even pay for their overnight stay in a nice hotel or something like that. You've got millions. And these people, these crazed women in the street, all these women that are so crazed and so scared, they'll be giving even more millions. It will triple, it will quadruple the amount of money that will go into make sure this woman gets an abortion, make sure this girl, make sure they get on that bus or that van or the limousine and they go to the state that has the abortion and make them stay at a luxury hotel. You've got the money. You can pay for that. Where are those millions going? Where are the millions going that Planned Parenthood is getting for selling these aborted fetuses? Where are those millions going? Why don't you take these women across the border? Should this happen, and they didn't calculate their cycles, they didn't learn anything about Plan B, the pill they could just take right after they have sex. They didn't learn about birth control. They didn't know nothing about nothing. And they're pregnant. You can take your millions. I don't know what you're using it for. Take those millions that you're getting, and the millions you're getting from Hollywood, and the millions you're getting from the billions you're getting from the United States government, and the billions more that you're going to be getting from Democrats who are losing their minds, and from Soros, and then put these women up in a luxury hotel, bring them to a state where abortion is legal, and put them up for 2 weeks in a luxury hotel, and in fact, pay for the therapists that they're going to need for their traumatic experience. Pay for it. Because they're going to need rehabilitation from the traumatic experience and the confusion, and they weren't sure what they were doing at the time they were doing it. Whatever. You know, let's not judge them for the reason why they came to the position that they're in, that they need the abortion. You have the billions, and you're going to get billions more. So you take care of it. You put the power in your hands, and don't destroy this man who didn't do anything. All right? All right. My speech is over with. It's late. I'm going to take a shower, another shower. I'm going to take it. I'm going to relax. And people, get things in order, because the apocalypse, you're going to bring on the apocalypse. Let's get some peace in this world and some rationale. Dress like dresses or clothes that are not pussy stuff or penis with balls and stuff. Don't do stuff like that. That's freaking crazy. I don't know how much pot or drugs you have to take to put that on your body. But you need to stop taking it. You need, and at such a young age. That's all I have to say. Well, anyway, thank you for joining Wicked Felina. Hope you had a great time with this talk, and I hope this Kavanaugh thing is freaking solved. Of course, I should talk about the whole thing in Puerto Rico too. That's another story. Tons and tons and tons of assistants went to Puerto Rico, you know. I just add this at the end because I don't know when I'm going to be able to make a video. Tons. We sent tons of food and water. Do you know what happened? You go to the people who are running these cities, and they looked out they were thrown out in the dumpsters. They took what they wanted and they threw the rest out in the dumpster. And then there was 500,000 gallons of water still sitting on the tarmac. Trump did everything he possibly could. He did, and he went there too, and gave them very nice, high quality, soft paper towels. I remember when he gave them that. But no. And then these lies are spread all over Facebook and social media. No, the response from Trump's administration was more than I think any other hurricane ever. Except what happens is the people who run these cities are corrupt, just like in Katrina. You know, in Katrina, the levees were supposed to be rebuilt, except the people, the mayor, people who ran that state, used the money for something else. You see, greedy politicians that steal, they were supposed to rebuild the levees so Katrina wouldn't have happened. And Bush was blamed for it. And I know I don't really like Bush at all whatsoever, but he was blamed for something that wasn't his fault at all whatsoever. It was because of greedy politicians who took the money. And that's what happened in Puerto Rico too. Unfortunately, maybe we need to go down there. Oh, how dare we Americans go down there and tell Puerto Rico how to run their country. Well, they want to be a state, don't they? Well, they're Americans, right? So maybe we should go down there and make sure things are run correctly. Or you're going to complain about that if we do that. You're going to complain about everything, aren't you? It doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter what anybody does good. You're going to complain about it. You have to. Because you have to destroy the Republican Party. You have to destroy Trump. It's even more important to destroy Trump than the Republican Party, because the Republican Party has turned up into a bunch of lying saps. Anyway, I'm signing off here. And so you got a little bit about the hurricane, news about the hurricane. Okay, I'll see you guys later. Hot, rainy. Oh my God. Anyway, we'll have a good night and peace. Be peace. Be rational. Be sane. Have your feet firmly planted on the ground. And think about the best way out of every situation that comes to you. That could be a disaster, but doesn't have to be. Think beforehand. Make plans beforehand. Don't let the apocalypse come. If you believe Jesus came and died for your sins, he'll come and he'll come in peace and there won't be a war. But we should, even if there is a war and someone makes war upon us, let's not war against each other. Let's all be Americans and be one. And not create a war amongst ourselves that's totally unnecessary. Totally unnecessary. Or else I'm going to have to run for office. I'm just going to have to do it. Anyway, goodbye everybody, and bless you in every way possible.